not having access to or not having a transparency in performance KPIs. This is one of the biggest problem I would consider, where practice owners, physicians, they're unaware about how their practice is performing against the industry level benchmarks.
Raja, thank you so much for hopping on today's podcast. I believe you're tuning in from Pakistan and your new office. So excited to speak to you today and learn about the work you're doing at Wise Medical Billing. And so to get things started, you've spent years in corporate leadership before starting Wise Medical. What made you step into healthcare and build a business that serves private practices?
I've noticed really practices piling up the huge paperwork there, which is not really a requirement in today's world. And as per compliance standards, you have to be electronically efficient, compliant, your data is secure, and shared with the patient so they can have an access to their medical records. So because this is how the system is structured, and really wanted to make sure that it's fully compliant there. So considering that, so this is one gap, I would say. The another gap is, which is where practice owners are struggling with, is not having a proper team in place. For example, being a practice owner, you're wearing multiple hats there. You are a consultant, you're the one who is taking care of the patient, which is your primary role, of course. At the same time, you're an HR person, you're a financial guy, you are administrator. So, whether is a practice or per se any business, it has to be properly structured. For any business owner, you need the right team in place to manage all these departments. I understand some of the small and medium-sized practices, they might not have enough budgets to have, multiple managers in place who can run their departments, by their own with minimal supervision. So what they end up with, I'll give you an example of, managing revenue cycle department. Generally, the practice owners, what they do is they end up hiring one medical biller or maybe two based on their requirements. Medical billers, they or a coder or any other staff member, they're really generally they're good at what they're doing. I mean, as per their role, but in order to efficiently run a department, you need the management. You need a right manager on top of them, a supervisor who is taking care of it and who strategize things, who plan things, who make sure your team is performing at optimum level. So that's where the gap actually comes into the picture. Generally, they have the practice manager, but practice managers are involved into many other things, but not solely focused on the revenue cycle part. They might
Yeah.
not be expert in the billing side of it. So that's another gap, I've noticed there. And thirdly, and the most important one is, not having access to or not having a transparency in performance KPIs. And this is one of the biggest problem I would consider, where practice owners, physicians, they're unaware about how their practice is performing against the industry level benchmarks. So this visibility is very, very important for any business owners to make sure how their business is performing so they can take educated decisions to grow their business.
Yeah. What's the on that point? And by the way, I love the breakdown of the gaps. They're very clear and I think relatable to a lot of practice owners. But on the point of KPIs, what is the one or two KPIs that are always a sticking point with practice owners? When you speak to them and you share the benchmark and they're like, wow, we're really lagging behind. Is it things AR days, days stuck in accounts receivable? Is it around days to collection? What is the KPI that is a sticking point when you speak to the practice owners?
You're spot on. For practice owners, it is highly important to have a track of those KPIs. So there is an industry standard which actually talks about what are the industry level KPIs. For example, aging, you already mentioned, aging in accounts receivable, that essentially talks about in for how many days your
Right.
bills, your claims are pending with the payers and haven't paid yet.
Yeah.
leads to the cash flow issues. Another thing, another KPI is, is the denial management. Your denial management really talks about what percentage of your claims are getting denied. And there are multiple reasons. If processes are not efficient, it will lead to denial. Either it's a coding errors, it's your basic eligibility errors, your front desk related issues and concerns. You're not verifying the patient benefits. So considering the denial part, for example, as per industry, your denial rate should be less than 5%. And if even if it is ideal, if you are standing at, 2 or 3%, less than 2 or 3%. So if your processes are well managed, very well structured, we are working with an efficient team, these KPIs has to be at par. Another interesting KPI is, your first pass resolution rate. What that essentially means, let's assume a situation where a claim is submitted,
Hmm.
whether it's submitted with errors or it's error free. If it is with errors, that will
Hmm.
lead to a denial eventually. Whether it's fixed or not, that's another story altogether. However, for you, it is important whatever claim is being submitted, it's submitted accurately, so it get paid firsthand. So with this KPI, we measure what percentage of the claims are getting paid in first go. That actually leads to faster reimbursement and efficient, cash flow. So average says, industry benchmark says your first pass resolution rate should be 80% and higher. What essentially means is 80% of your claims should be getting paid in one go, in the first go. So these are some of the examples. There are many other KPIs. We have to be mindful about tracking all of these and making sure your business is running and being
Right.
managed and then, at an industry benchmark level.
I think those KPIs and benchmarks you laid out are pretty spot on. Denial rates being less than 5%, first pass resolution rate being 80% or higher. So, Raja, there's a lot of like billing companies and RCM companies out there. You guys do a variety of things. What makes your model different, and what kind of like transformation have you helped practices achieve in like 3 to 6 months? And maybe touch on how your like Fortune 500 background has helped you bring some level of rigor to the process. If you mind filling us in on that.
Absolutely. So, being part of the Fortune 500, one thing I've learned when you work with your clients in a partnership manner, when you work with them as your core team, one of the core team, just not as an outsourced partner, but somebody who can be relied upon and who is efficient in managing their things. For example, when you're hiring a talent for your team, it is important for you to really know whether this individual can make a difference for my company or not. So that's one of the things you really check it out. And when you're hiring a manager, you wanted to make sure this manager is capable of delivering the results based on their prior experience and exposure. Coordinate very actively on a regular basis. We are part of their meetings, we are part of their strategic discussions, we are part of their future plans, and making sure we, being your RCM, I would call it your RCM manager or RCM director, we help you achieve your future goals, your your visions related to your practice and the business. So that's how we operate. Considering the services part, medical provider credentialing is, that's where you get started. Anybody, any provider who is just starting off with their practice, they need to go through the credentialing and contracting process, or so we start from there, of course. Somebody who is already established, they are running their practice since few years now, they haven't
Yeah.
negotiated their rates, so we help them renegotiate their rates, their fee schedule with the payer, so they can get better reimbursements as compared to what they're currently getting at the moment.
Right.
So that's there. Along with that, the medical coding as a service, medical billing as a service, making sure you're from the front desk to claim submission, claim management, active follow-ups, denial management, and accounts receivable recovery and reconciliation of your payments. Whatever
Right.
payments were received from the payer's end and are getting into your bank account. So it's a complete end-to-end process. We as a company make sure our clients are fully updated and we help them draw the clear picture by showcasing them, state of the art reports
Right.
with great details there itself.
Yeah, yeah, spot on. I mean, you're not lying when you say you go into a partnership model because you do basically everything under the sun with RCM and billing. So it's clear, you guys support a variety
Absolutely.
of.
And Bert, to be honest, in today's time, data and the processes are highly important. So your decisions has to be data driven. If you're not looking into what's a section of your department is performing well and vice versa. So you
Yeah,
get this picture with the clear analytics and the data. So we base all of our discussions, all of the decisions purely based on the analytics,
yeah,
specifically related to your practice, and that's how make your life
yeah.
easier for making better and educated calls there.
Yeah, well, and it's also part of it is like I completely agree on decisions being data driven, but also like RCM like is done at all sizes of practices, right? Like your smaller mid-sized practices. Like I've worked with RCM teams at large health systems, like hospital systems, and they have huge RCM teams, and even they haven't figured out sometimes the right optimal like models, right? Like they're still trying to optimize like how do we use data better to make informed decisions? How do we start to use AI, to do certain parts of claim submission process or reviews with payers, right? So it's a whole world. And I want to ask you a little bit about like maintaining the status quo because from my understanding, like practices that you serve, like and basically either like they run billing in house and it's maybe not as efficient as it should be, or they outsource it, right? And like you said, that outsource model sometimes takes the form of like they outsourced a couple billers, but then those billers don't have supervision or management around it, and they don't have like insight into their KPIs. They kind of just trust that they're doing billing, right? And then they get paid through their claims. But my question to you is what holds back practices from switching models, and like how do you help them move towards like real operational improvement?
I mean, this is one of the major concern we often come across when our clients come up to us and talks about their journey so far. They've been working either in-house billing team or the outsourced billing team, considering fairly when they really do not have the right leadership, the processes and tools in place. So they end up with losing money instead of growing their practice. And
Mm,
how they lose money, their denial rate goes up. It will really impact their revenues. And there are some scenarios where you cannot even recover the claims reimbursement. You cannot get this approved until unless the foundation is stable there. So the three pillars I actually touched base, in the beginning, your people, processes, and tools. People means efficient team, just not the billing team, but the person you're outsourcing your work to, the team you're outsourcing your work to. They have to be efficient. They have to be subject matter expert. They have to be a strategic leader who can make decisions proactively and align your practice management and revenue cycle management. That's number one. Similarly, they have right tools, or if you're working on your own tools, they are proficient with your tools, practice management tools, your electronic health records. So your team has to be very well versed. And thirdly, they have efficient processes. They know how the operations are managed. They know how the billing, the coding, the system, the processes are well aligned, documented, and they're just not coming up with the new things every day, but they're following a clear protocol in running their business itself. So unfortunately, based on encounters I've had, the discussions I have had with the practice owners is if they're not doing the complete scrutiny before you're hiring for any revenue cycle management team for your practice, and they end up with, revenue losses. So it is highly important to make sure you are selecting the right team, making sure they have the right process and they're well versed with the tools, so
Yeah.
they can work closely with you and help you grow itself. And
Right.
talking about the latest technologies, and in today's era, artificial intelligence plays a very vital role. There are some processes that can be significantly improved, that can be where we can utilize our AI technologies, our generative AI technologies, where system learns, and you need to consider where your revenue cycle management team is fully efficient and what kind of processes they're dealing with and how exactly they're managing those processes. I believe having such information and knowledge during your discovery calls with them will help you make better decisions to
Right.
which
Right.
one to select and ignore.
What basically you're getting after is a big part of it is just making the right hires for your RCM team, and then the processes and tools around it. Because, I mean, said another way, like literally across different specialty areas, I imagine like the types of like Hicks picks and CBT codes that you're dealing with are wildly different from like OBGYN, the cardiology, nephrology. So if your RCM hires don't have a firm understanding of that, you will naturally get more denials, right? Because the claim isn't
Yes,
submitted correctly.
you're spot on. You're
Go ahead.
absolutely, because every specialty has their own coding system. So HICPIC codes are varied from specialty to specialty.
Yeah.
So, for example, you are a podiatrist, you are a urologist, or internal medicine per se, any specialty. So you wanted to make sure whether this team has clear understanding
Yeah.
about your specialty, about their procedure code, the diagnosis code, how things link up, what modifiers to be used. So you should ask these questions before making your decision. I'll give you one of the transformation journey we have had with recently with one of our clients. So it was a podiatry practice. They
Yep.
were doing in-house billing. They had three billers managing their billing in-house. No manager on top. Practice manager was busy managing the practice, taking care of the patient things, taking care of
Right.
the patient's part, and many other administrative tasks. But your billing, which is the core, means that's your revenue side. Because you are completely relying on a team who is managing your revenue, and revenue is the most important thing for any business. They were managing their revenue cycle management with in-house billing team, and eventually over the period of six months, they piled up about $2 million worth of accounts receivable.
Wow.
What was happening? Billers were submitting the claims, but they were not chasing the claims. They were not following up with the payers. They were not addressing the denials. Either it's because of capacity issues or, lack of clarity in the
Right.
processes. So we get into the root cause and make sure we address the actual cause of the problem, just not the symptoms. So that's part of our comprehensive audit. So we have done the audit. We let them know like these are the areas of concern.
Yeah.
And within 4 months time period, so we were able to recover about 80% of their overall AR, which was
Wow.
recoverable. So which actually led them to move
Yeah.
forward in an efficient manner. So now they're a happy practice. They're managing their operations in an efficient way. They're less worried about the billing and the revenue cycle. And now they're in the phase of really expanding from one location to other. So, I mean, that's
Wow.
how we have transformed, life of one practice owner. And there are many others, but I just thought to,
Yeah.
share one
Yeah.
perspective there.
No, that's a powerful transformation journey. I mean, like just recover 80% of 2 million in AR, you're talking 1.6 million in recoverable revenue you were able to recover. And like you said, though, it's not even that. Like, that's an impressive number, but it's what is the root cause, and you guys address that so that moving forward, they won't have another 2 million in AR pile up. Like they're able to manage things more efficiently moving forward. And you even dropped at the end that they've been able to expand from one location to another. Like, speaks volumes to the work you guys did, and very powerful story. For practice owners out there that are listening and may want to get a better understanding of their KPIs or how their team is structured today, or even like explore one of these comprehensive audits that you talked about, what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team online?
So we are available in multiple social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I mean, I very actively use it by myself. We'll be happy to set up a call with you initially to really understand what are your pain points, what are your, problem areas that you're really concerned about. I would say what keeps you awake in the night, the major pain points that keeps you awake. And I think that's the starting point. In order to grow your business, it is always important. I know, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, you always think about scaling your business. You always
Right.
plan about growing your business. So there are lots of questions in the mind. As part of the that conversation, we really help you understand the core problems and issues, and will help you equip with the strategy, with the plan, how you can grow your business, how you can scale your practice and improve and grow your revenues. So you'll have the clear strategy in hand. At the end of the day, whether would like to move ahead with us or not, purely is going to be your decision, your call. But at least you'll get some clarity what needs to be done and
Right.
how it needs to be done. So you know a clear plan ahead to grow your practice.
Yeah, yeah, spot on. I mean, it sounds like you guys really start with the conversation up front with the practice owners, or even their practice managers. Like, hey, what are the core problems and pain points that your business is facing right now? And you have that conversation. Like you said, it's not a one size fits all model, because what the problems of podiatry practice are facing will be much different than OBGYN or nephrology. So,
Absolutely. As you mentioned, one size doesn't fit all. Every specialty has their own concern. There are some surface level common issues. So that's how you really need to understand the core concerns and how it needs to be resolved. So during these conversations, we help you with coming up with a tailored solution, because there's no one solution, solve all of these problems. So it has to be a tailored approach, specific to your business, specific to your practice, and so you can understand those nuances and how to get through it. That matters the most.
yeah, no, I'm excited to keep tabs on your guys' journey of Wise Medical Billing. I mean, the story that you laid out with podiatry practice is powerful, and I'm sure you're helping other practices lead similar transformation journeys. Raja, thanks so much for being a great guest on the podcast, and I'm really excited to keep tabs on your guys' journey at Wise Medical Billing and see the transformation journeys that you have with practices, not just in the podiatry space, but in other groups like cosmetics. And great conversation here today, and thanks for being a great guest.
Thank you, Bert. Thanks for having me. Real pleasure catching up with you always. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.